And just like that, it's Wednesday night. We're back. We're back in the Wednesday night Tech Talk Live. I don't know what you would call it. Studio, the one where I keep my bed in the background.
Garage.
And, Professor P's in the garage. So I guess I need to catch up. I need to get my life in order where I can have a garage in the background. But so it's Wednesday night again, and we're throwing it at you guys. I'm sorry I didn't put this up until late this evening. I literally was taking the most hardcore nap like in the world, where I just, you ever had one of those things where you just like literally fall asleep? You know, you're like, man, I'm so tired. I just sat down and I was just out. And then I woke up like 2 hours later, like, my God, what a freaking amazing nap, you know? But that's what happened.
Been there, done that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll start off Wednesday night with Lars. LP94 was the first one in here when I created this thing at 6:23 p.m. So the Central Standard Time. So that if you're watching that today, you realize that was not even an hour ago. So that's how lazy I was about it. Okay. John Wilburn is here. 6th Street Garage. Howdy all. Mohawk 62 is 4th in tonight. And just to get things out of the way, switch pitch. All right. Bobby Frizzell says, what's up, folks? Miss Catgy. Hey, good crew. How's it all going? So Miss Catgy is here. KS Skyhawk is ready to go. Slant Daily Garage says, what's up, suckers? Yeah. Michael Robert Embry is here tonight, and he's happy that he made it. So Fab Race Mod Repeat says, hello from Northeast Dragway. And let's see, Val 360 Jimmy, Mama M3, or Mama M cubed. That I've been, now I'm enlightened. Mama M cubed. Okay. Dust Devil Garage says, naps are awesome. They are, dude. Like, there's very few things that, you know, I kind of get geeked out about, but when I get a good nap in, that's like literally one of them because it just makes your day better.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little siesta.
What's that?
A little siesta.
Yeah, siesta always makes things a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know, SSR Performance is here. Good evening, gentlemen. It's good to see you. I guess we haven't talked about Triple Crown much like recently, huh?
No.
Well, maybe we'll bring a lot of that up tonight. There's no real changes to anything. It's just we need to talk some Triple Crown. And that's what SSR Performance is all about. So let's see. 38 Racing is here. Evening, y'all. Trying to knock in some A-arm bushings. Well, hey, you know what? I'm probably going to have to do that myself. My little S10 is making all kinds of front-end noise, so I'm assuming it's something like that.
I made a tool with half-inch, half 13 all-thread nuts, and it's basically just it's got like a cup and a socket on the other end, and you just press them in, and then you flip them around, and it presses it out.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
So you made like a portable press.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then it just makes it really simple. You can actually do them really quick.
And then Matthew is here. Hi, everyone. Hey, Matthew. Well, thanks for stopping by. And tonight's Wednesday Night Tech Talk is brought to you by none other than us. All right. So last week, everybody, I did it myself. And at the end there, I had mentioned, hey, this 78 Buick Sentra I was looking at, and everybody threw like, hey, here's $10 here for the Buick fund and $20 there and $5. And then Chris Cox gave like $99.99. And I was like, oh, crap. Now I'm committed.
You're
right?
committed.
Now I'm committed. I got to go get this thing, right? So, but I haven't got it yet. Things are just unplannable at the moment. But I will get down that way. And I'll probably go get it maybe this weekend. That's what I'm thinking. So, all right. So let's see. I think that's about it. We're all caught up. So I guess what's the big things that we have to discuss? One, next week I won't be doing a live next week. I'm going to help Buff Del Campo go get a parts car from Jonesboro, Arkansas, and it's going to be pretty much an all-day adventure for me and Buff in the old Suburban.
Yeah.
So it's literally probably like, I bet it'd be about 10 hours worth of driving.
Yeah.
So yeah, we might even stop by Professor P's place, which he's talking about. He's going to do the live on your channel, correct? On
Yeah. Next Wednesday, I'll just be on my channel, same time, 7 to 9. So yeah, we'll just do it there. And I'm not really sure what the topic is, but I'll put something up there.
well, maybe me and Buff will just stop by. You're like literally on the way.
Yeah, come on by. You know where it's at.
Yeah.
And I got a big camera here. I got tables right here too. We can chairs. We can all do it one thing right here.
We could. It doesn't matter. We'll wing it and we'll figure it out. I mean, if I'm going to do that, I might as well bring you that monkey bike. So.
Oh yes, that'd be awesome.
And then Buff just sent us a super sticker. So
awesome.
Thanks, Buff. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're gonna do that. That's the plan. Next Wednesday, I'm gonna go help Buff get this haul this parts car home. And it, like, you know what's funny is my Suburban hasn't moved since No Name Nationals. Like I parked in the driveway when I got home, and then it hasn't moved. Like I haven't touched it or anything. And I'm like, I'm going to go out there and start it up today. Yeah, okay. Guess what happens when you let them sit? The battery wasn't just dead. It died. Like literally has a dead cell in it somehow now.
Yeah.
It's been on the charger for 14 hours now and
done.
Still no bueno, right?
You have to cook that thing with some amps. Get it boiling and it'll come back.
I think so.
Yeah. It's just the sulfates inside of it. That's all it really is. I've had 2 batteries here that, I've had for almost 12, 13 years. Every time they die, I just cook them back on. They got to be really good battery for that. It can't be like one of those Walmart like specials. But
that's what it is. So I'm probably going to go to. I'm thinking about going to Costco and get myself an interstate battery. Yeah,
that's what I do on all my cars. Every one that dies, I just go to Costco and get it. You got a Costco card? It's cheap. It is cheap.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at it's going to save me about $20, maybe more than that.
And the free replacement warranty on them is worth it, 100%.
Well, there's actually an Interstate Batteries distributor up in Lebanon, so it's like not far from here. I can literally walk into an Interstate Batteries store.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I don't know if that's any different or better than the ones at Costco, but I'm thinking I remember having the ones from Costco, and that's what was in my white Ford truck, and they lasted 7 years. And there used to be once upon a time, there was only one company in the United States that made batteries, which was Johnson Controls. And it didn't matter if you had an Interstate or a Superstar or whatever it was. They were all, they were Johnson Controls batteries. So you just found the best deal on the battery you could, and you just went and got it because it was literally the same battery with a different decal on it.
Yeah.
Now I think things have changed.
Yeah, the Walmart batteries, they have those cheap ones. Those are literally recycled batteries. Those are core batteries that they brought back from the dead. And that's why they're so cheap. That's all they're doing is cooking the batteries with a bunch of amps, and then they boil them up and then fill them back up and send them on. That's all they're doing.
Huh. Well, maybe I'll try boiling the battery I got now.
Yeah, put it
on my welder and let her eat, huh?
Yeah, take the cap off, make sure they're filled, but make sure the top's off because it's going to bubble. And then you basically put on 50 amps or so and just watch it. And you'll start to see the ones that are bubbling, and you just let it get hot, and then you bring down the amperage a little bit and then put it back on 50 amps and bring it back down. You just do that a few times, and you just, watch the battery, make sure it doesn't get hot, and obviously you get over hot and catch on fire. But as soon as it starts bubbling, that's where the magic's happening. As soon as they all are bubbling, that's when all the sulfates come out and you're good.
Huh. Well, I've never done that. I don't think this battery has removable caps, so it may not be a candidate. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'll just stop at Costco and pick up a new battery.
Yeah.
It's been, I think, when did I put that thing together? 5 or 6 years ago. So.
Yeah, the battery that's in this car I bought in 2017, and it started turning over slowly the other day, and I was like,
that's how mine started off. Like, well, I noticed. See, all right, since the Suburban sat, I generally just throw stuff in the back of it and use it like a storage unit. Mm-hmm. And I rolled down the back window the last time, and I'm like, man, that thing's really dragging. And then I realized, oh, the amperage, the battery doesn't have the amperage. It's pretty much, it needs to be charged, right? So then I throw the charger on it today, and it says, 70%. Then you go in there and hit the key. It's like, like, all right, she's got a bad cell, maybe 2.
Yeah, dead.
Yeah. So Bobby Frizzell says he's been running the same Optima battery for 7 years now. And that's what's in my race car, and they're the same ones from 2015. So
Wow,
they've been
you got 2 of them in there?
2 of them, yeah. Yeah, I long time ago when Optimum was awesome. I don't know if they're awesome anymore. It was an expensive purchase. I mean, it was probably twice as much as a regular battery, right?
Plus the charger.
Well, then I bought a charger for them.
Yeah.
And I did that because I had a regular charger on them, and we would charge out of Verona. And what I found was the regular charger wouldn't charge them correctly. You would charge them and it would shut off. The charger would, because it's charged, and you go in there and hit the key and you're at 9 volts and you're like, oh, hold on a minute. What's going on here? And it's because it didn't like the deep cycle style of battery. It didn't like that the Optima had like 14.5 volts versus, what, idle 11.7, 11.8. Didn't like that. So, all right. Let's see. Dylan Levi says, sorry I'm late. What did I miss? You didn't really miss much. We've only been chatting for about 12 minutes. I did want to tell you just yesterday afternoon, I got some new, well, not new, I guess. They're new old stock gaskets from Dylan Levi. Mailed them to me for Buick Big Block. And he found some gaskets somewhere, and he was like, hey man, you want these? I'm like, okay. Are they still pliable? And he's like, yeah, no problem. They're pliable. I'm like, all right. And that's all you really got to worry about with gaskets. They don't really age out. You just got to watch to see if they're pliable. If they're still soft, you can still run them. If they get hard, they get brittle. They just crack and break easy. So, all right. Let's see. Mopar Al says, hello, everyone. So Mopar Al in the house.
Yeah. I got something to talk about. Did anyone see what Cope just finally finished for Plan Z? Did anyone see that? It's a valve body. John was talking about last Friday, but it's a valve body for Plan Z. And what's special about it is that it's going to be a 1, 2, 3 reverse manual valve body, low band apply, lockup. But the really bitchy thing that John Cope put in there is that it's going to have a bump box built in, so I'll be able to bump in. Because I'm not going to have a 2-step on this thing. When I run Plan Z, it's going to be, I'm going to put it to the floor, and then I'm going to be, basically just on a trans brake. So that way, if I bump it in, John was telling me that he was able to get another pound of boost. So I might be able to do the same thing, because I'm going to just basically be on the converter. So that's the idea, because we're going to make this as simple. I'm not going to have any electronic controls. It's going to be a GM module, a Ford coil, and that's it. And I'm going to let this thing eat. So and I think he just did a video on it. I think he just posted it a few hours ago. So go over there and check it out. John Cope, CRT. What's his channel called?
Cope Racing Transmissions channel.
Yeah, it's Cope Racing Transmissions channel. That's what it is. Yep. Yeah,
go check it out. He should have he should change a name to put like the Godfather of valve bodies.
Oh, he did. He put the king, the Chicago King of Transmissions or something like that, instead of you remember on Ferris Bueller's Day Off, it's like, oh, you're the Chicago King of Sausage or whatever.
Right.
He put on there the Chicago King of valve bodies or transmissions, and it made me laugh. It's funny as hell.
Well, Dust Devil Garage says, does the new valve body have a bunch of holes in it?
I don't know. Is the valve? He says it's the valve body king of Chicago. Thanks, John. That's what it was. Yeah. So remember in Ferris Bueller's Day Off when they were trying to get into the restaurant? Remember that?
Yeah, it's the Sausage King.
Yeah, Sausage King. So he did the valve body king of Chicago. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's see. Val 360 Jimmy says, speaking of Optima batteries, what do you guys prefer, red or yellow top? My yellow top lasted for years, but now I need a new one. Oh man, that's a tough question, because a lot of things have changed in the past 10 years since I bought one of those things. I did buy the yellow top ones for my car in 2014 or 15 when I bought them. And they've lasted this whole time, but I mean, the car doesn't see a lot of track use. It doesn't even hardly get driven.
What's the difference between yellow and a red?
The yellow is the deep cycle. You can take it like it literally discharges down to has the one electron left, and it does work pretty good, but you do require a special charger for it. And the alternator generally doesn't even get it right on the battery, I don't think. I mean, they still charge, but it doesn't get it right, you know, because they're looking at 13.6 volts. And then I think the Optima can actually take quite a bit more higher voltage, because they'll run at like 14.5 volts on one of them batteries. So let's see. And Lars put up the link to Cope's video of Shane's valve body. So now you're going to be the number one dude again, huh? Serial number one.
I think it's 001 only because it's got the bump control inside of it. But yeah, it's going to be something else, because I'm going to take basically A99 transmission, hybrid it into a Slant 6 body, and make this thing work. So it's going to be something trick. And then John was telling me what year to get as far as a converter for the highest stall. So I'm going to be looking for that. So I'm going to try to run as much stockish stuff as I can and see what I can get. All I really need is 2,500 RPM. If I can get 2,500 RPM with about 400 foot-pounds of torque, I believe it'll do exactly what I need to do, because I'm not going crazy with the engine.
Well, and here's Mr. Cope himself thanking Lars for putting up that video, but it doesn't need any introduction. It's the Valve Body King of Chicago right here on our YouTube Live on Wednesday Night Tech Talk.
Right.
Yeah. Bobby Frizzell says, I've only ran the red top, never had an issue. I've never had an issue out of any of the Optimas, but I've heard that the quality of them is like not what it once was. So I don't know. I know that for the longest time, I wanted to get a blue top one because it's a marine battery. It's a deep cycle marine battery. So they'll go even lower than the yellows. Let's see. Dylan Levi says, I never considered running an Optima. It's either a race battery or AC Delco. Well, when I built the car, they didn't have race batteries. I think the race batteries were
later.
Yeah, I think it was like a couple of years after that they started coming out with the lithium-ion race batteries. But then when those things came out, literally people's cars were burning up in the trailers on the way to the track. So, like,
negative.
Everyone assumed it was the batteries, so I never touched one after that. Like, I'll pass on that. I can't afford to lose everything I got, that I've worked so hard for. But Mopar Al sent us $19.99. Thank you, brother. I don't know why you did that, but I do appreciate it. So maybe I can get some StreamYard going, or I'll put it toward the Buick Fund and go pick up that 78 Century. Okay. Blue Grit Garage asks a tech question. Does Edelbrock have a check valve for mounting before a mechanical fuel pump, or better after pump, to keep fuel from draining back to the tank? And how does that work? Is it too restrictive?
The fuel pump should have that internally. Most of the fuel pumps that we have that already set up inside of it, so it's not needed. Once the fuel gets to the pump, it's not going to flow backwards. You're only going to be burning out probably from the pump to the carburetor, just because of just evaporation from heat. But it should already be internally on the pump.
Even a stock pump has this built inside of it. Now, what I have noticed is, like, the Chinesium pumps will lose their prime. But the factory pumps, if you have something that's like a quality OEM style factory pump, they don't seem to lose their prime that easily. The other thing I have noticed is, since the gasoline has a lot of ethanol in it now, it makes it vaporize a lot easier. So if you're going to have a carbureted car that you want to drive relatively frequently, it better be almost daily if you want to use the ethanol gas. If not, I'd start cutting it. I'd do 1 tank ethanol, 1 tank non-ethanol gas if you can. Wheelie King 71 says, I have a pair of red tops in my truck from 08. They refused to die. I heard they went to hell when production moved to Mexico. Then more recently heard quality is back. Oh, well, they could have. I don't know. I've heard the same thing, where the quality of the Optima was not what it once was. But it used to be that was the battery to buy if you had high load applications. Like, if you've never noticed, my T-Bird is like an electrician's nightmare. Okay. And it's got EFI on it. And not only does it have, like regular EFI with one set of injectors, but it's got multiple sets of injectors in it now. Plus it's got 2 fuel pumps, an electric water pump. The thing pulls some serious amps, and usually after just a pass, the batteries are freaking smoldering in the trunk. So The other thing is you got to have, when you run an EFI, you got to have this uniquely humongous solenoid disconnect, because it's the only way to kill the engine, right? And you have to have, it's a high current circuit breaker is what it is, really, or relay, I guess it would be. But that thing gets so hot, you could probably walk back there and light a cigar off of it. I mean, it's like that solenoid gets hot, but it's a high current solenoid, and it's meant for running heavy loads through it, and you'll be able to shut off with a battery disconnect switch, and that solenoid shuts off, dropping all current to the car. Otherwise, the EFI car, if you got an alternator on it, it's going to just keep running, right?
Yeah.
Biggest problem. Let's see. Okay. Matthew says, I think Optimum was bought by a private equity firm, so they are probably not what they used to be. Oh, I don't know. I know that the past 20 years has been pretty rough on the automotive industry just because of the influx of the super cheap, the parts from overseas. And what happens is they buy like one part from, like, say, I don't know, Holly or Edelbrock, and then knock it off and then sell it for 1/3 the price. And then once those guys stop selling them, then they jack the price up to what the price once was, and you're paying premium price for an unnamed part where they absolutely just stole the intellectual property of it. So that's where the thievery comes in, and I really don't care for it. Let's see. Blue Grit Garage says, my brother has to run a gel battery in his Lotus because he would corner so hard the acid would spill out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty bitching.
Yeah.
That means you're turning some G's.
That's good.
Let's see. Tom Brown says there are two different types of Optimus per color, a gray case and a dark gray case. One is strictly cranking. The other is dual cranking and deep cycle. I can't remember which is which.
Wow. I didn't
know that either. You didn't know that, Shane?
Didn't know that.
Me either. Yeah, I had the yellow top was the deep cycle, and that's the one I ended up using.
Yeah, I didn't know that they made them that they actually had them for like dual batteries. But that makes sense because I remember when I was looking at Optimus for my diesel truck, I had to buy special batteries, and that makes sense now. I didn't know there was colors for that, but I had to buy batteries that were designed for dual batteries.
All right. Well, so B&R's got some questions here for you. He was missing you last week because he was upset. He was like, man, I went and did all this crank work for balancing, and you weren't here the following week. He was going to ask you. So, Professor P, how does gun drilling lightning holes affect pendulum weight balance? Or it has no bearing whatsoever?
Okay, so now gun drilling down the center does nothing at all. All it does is just take away rotating mass from the crankshaft. But lightning holes are different. That's actually at the crank end. That's actually at the crank journal end. The rod end. Let's put it that way. What that does, though, is that because the formula is, I always gotta read it because I always forget it. It's rotating components times 2 plus reciprocating components times 1. So because it's on the reciprocating end, you're going to be taking that amount of mass away from that end. Remember, that's times 2 instead of times 1. So that's exactly opposite of what you're trying to do. And that's good because means you don't have to put Mallory to counteract that weight. So you're taking that amount of weight exactly out of the rotating. So it does affect that. But if that's what you're talking about, gun drilling down the center does nothing for that. It just takes it out as far as weight of the crankshaft. And actually, in some instances, it makes it stronger. Forces go around the outside of metal. So that's a whole argument for another day. But as far as weight balancing, it does help on the rod end, if that's what he's asking. Did I read that correctly?
I think so.
Yeah.
What it sounds like. And he was talking about the pendulum weight balance. So he's talking about the opposite end. So it wouldn't be the rod end. It would be the crank weight end. Yeah.
So, I think, I've never heard it called pendulum weight balance. I think he's talking about the weight, the throw end. So the counterweight end.
Right. The counterweight. That's what he's talking about.
Okay. Yeah. So you don't lighten the holes on that end. If that's what he's saying, you only want to lighten the holes on the end with the actual rod.
All right. He says that I had both my Pontiac 455 nodular crankshafts turned down 1/8 of an inch. all 6 counterweights on both.
All 6 counter. Okay. Now you got to, the only thing that's scary on that is that you should do that after you have it balanced. What I mean by that is find out what your bob weight is first, and then do this.
Don't normally do that until you have the rod and piston weight.
Exactly,
right?
because if you turn this down, you might have to add Mallory metal, because where you're turning it down is exactly where the weight needs to be. So if you have too heavy of a bob weight, and then you have to add weight to the other side to counteract that weight, because remember, it's ×2 on the big end, and it's ×1 up on the piston end. So you have to have that counterweight to counteract that weight on the other end. That's why it's there, and that's why a lot of people have to add Mallory there. Now, if you have a really light setup, then you can cut those down. That's where you see those holes drilled into the end of it. People can cut them down then, and that way you don't have to drill the holes into it. But yeah, turning it down should be fine. But just when you get it balanced, make sure you got some really lightweight parts, and you should be just fine.
Yeah, most people don't cut those counterweights until they're balancing the whole assembly, or it's all going in at the same time, right? Because if you take too much off, oh man, the Mallory metal is stupid expensive compared to that cast iron that's on there.
Yeah, and the Mallory metal is on average, I think they have about $250 a slug. So if you need 2 slugs, that's $500 plus you got to put them in. So it's very expensive.
All right, Tom Brown says the red top has a circuit in the top to release all of the juice, so all current in the first 3 seconds of starting. Then it falls off after that.
Didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. He said we had Optima training when I used to manage the Napa store years ago. Well, that's what we're wondering, is that still applied to the Optimus to today? Is all of that knowledge from when the Optima was the battery to run became moot? You know, I never ran an Optima battery. I always ran Sears Diehard. I ran the Diehard Gold series from Sears up until they stopped making them. And I always had good luck with those Sears Diehard batteries. And see, I built my car for bracket racing. That's why it's got 2 batteries in it, because there's nothing worse than like
dead.
Well, the way it used to work, I don't know how it works today. Every round used to get shorter and shorter and shorter in between, to where you get down to the final 4 and you're literally making a pass, pulling it right back up in the lanes, and then hopefully you can get it cooled off. You don't have time to charge it. And so hopefully it'll make another pass or another 2 passes like that.
That's why my car's got 2 batteries and an alternator, and it's for that reason, because I would run and I would be coming right back down, especially at Famoso when you're at the March meet on Sunday. Man, you're making like 5 rounds, like literally back to back to back when you're running hot rod class. And there was times I was literally driving up, and I kept my gas can at the staging lanes, and I was just filling up, and I was leaving my fan and my electric water pump on in the staging lanes, just letting it cool down, and then starting it back up, and then turning the alternator off as I went down the track.
That's exactly how I do it.
Yeah.
I actually, this may sound dumb, but when you do your burnout and stage the car, and once it's staging, you see me in there fumbling with all the switches. That's because I'm turning off the water pump and everything while I'm making that pass, and then it all gets turned on at the big end when you're letting off the throttle. And so that way, I mean, it's not using so much juice going down the track. I wanted to make sure MSD is super finicky, right? If it drops below, like, say, 11 volts, you're done.
10.5.
Yeah, 10.5 volts. It will not fire.
It'll shut off.
Yeah, and so the whole idea is, if I'm gonna short somebody on voltage and current, it's going to be going down the track, so that MSD box is running. And then when I get down to big end, I'll turn all the other stuff on, and it's already running, so it won't spike. It won't current spike the battery and drop the voltage.
You don't have an alternator?
I do have an alternator. I got a 160 amp alternator.
Okay.
It's like,
can't keep up?
No, the pumps are too much.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I have two. Okay, you gotta remember, man. I built that dang T-Bird before you had things like the A1000 pump.
No, I got that. I was sitting here just trying to do math. I mean, I have a 140 amp, Cadillac, GM alternator on mine, and it when it kicks on, everything lights up really bright, but
Yeah,
I don't have.
mine just does not charge well, and it's
Okay.
because I have two Bosch 044 pumps on there. Because I had when I originally built it, the only aftermarket EFI pumps were made by Excel, which were a Bosch pump, and so the Bosch 044 is the exact pump, fits in the framing, the bracket, and all that stuff, and then but it is kind of a current hog because it's meant to be just one of those pumps on a Porsche, right? On a turbocharged Porsche. And then I got two of them. And so it's kind of hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. BNR says I took the time to measure the 455 crankshaft drilled rod throws. So he just drilled them both to match the 70 and 72. Let's see. He said that on crankshaft number 1, he lost 0.6 pounds. So that's actually significant on a crankshaft.
Yeah, because remember that if that's on that end, then once you get to RPM, since that's so many inches away from the center line, that goes up to like massive pounds. That's like 200, 300 pounds at like 5,000
force.
RPM. Yeah, the force is out of control.
Well, it's all what mass and inertia and all that stuff figured out. Okay,
Force vectoring.
Yeah, way more than I know. Right. So, BNR also says that the Optimum red tops are still decent, made in Mexico, last me 5 to 7 years.
Okay,
that's what we were talking about. Yeah, BNR says, okay, years ago I had a made in USA Optima red top, lasted me 14 years. That's what I'm looking for right there. I'm the guy that, like, when I find something that works, I stick with that until they no longer make it.
Exactly. And, same way.
Yeah.
Same way.
Oh, man. I don't know. Danny Boyd's asking that belt slip arrangement Tony had on Plan Z.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going to be changing that. He didn't have an alternator on it. I'm going to be putting an alternator on this. And I'm actually going to put a pretty decent one on it. I'm going to probably run one of those 140 amp ones out of like an 89 truck. It's still got the two field on it, so it's just going to be 2-field wire, because literally we're going to be driving with lights and driving around, and plus I'm going to have some electronic stuff on it, because it's going to have an electronic pump when it goes down the track, because it's going to have a separate fuel system for the going down the track under high boost. And so yeah, there's going to be some pretty cool stuff on this thing. It's going to be an absolute wrapped in shit, but everything else is going to be awesome inside of it. It's going to be wrapped in shit.
Tom Brown. Yeah, it's like shit wrapper.
Yeah. It is a shit wrapper, yeah.
Yeah. Tom Brown says the Group 27 top post Walmart battery is one of the longest lasting batteries on the market, made in a different plan than the rest of the Walmart batteries, was on the Consumer Reports best buys for years. I don't know if it's still there. I don't buy. I tried. That's what's in the truck now is a Walmart battery, and that's all what I could afford at the time. But I'd really like to step it up to an Interstate. I've had good luck with the Interstate batteries.
Yeah. Everything I have now, whenever I need a battery, I just go straight to Interstate. Literally, I just bought 2 for the diesel truck, and the next one to get is this. I've got 2 in the race car, 1 in the wife's car. I mean, everything's got the Interstates on them just because it's a good battery.
Vintage Adventure drives. My Scamp has points ignition running a big yellow coil. I'll be just fine without the alternator running.
100%. I drove it for a week.
What you need to do is, like, because she's showing up for Triple Crown. Okay. So the way this should work is, 1, put a switch on that sucker, right? That's what I would do. If you're gonna do laps on it, just put a switch on that thing.
Yeah.
If you are going for all out, everything you can possibly get, pull the pulley off the crank and the belt off, and then don't run anything, right? But push that thing right up to the top. I mean, you're literally, because you won't be running a water pump either. Right?
Well, yeah, but that's what the slipper belt's for. Is if you just make a belt on there that's like that can slip, so it can just basically slip on there. When you're idling around, it'll be turning the water pump, but then when you go down the track, it'll start to slip. Yeah, it'll slip it. Yeah. Just put a switch on it. That the switch works awesome. I got one on the race car, on the blue car, and after I do my burnout, and after you see me purge the nitrous, the next thing I'll go over there is I turn off the alternator, so it's just spinning. It's just a spinning object at that point.
It's a dead weight at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
So then friction from an alternator is generated with the magnetic field of the alternator. But when you excite the alternator with the field wire, because that's generally what you do to generate the electricity, right? is you're essentially putting 12 volts on the field and you're creating a magnetic field.
Yep.
That magnetic field gets stronger and stronger the more current you put on that alternator until it gets to a point where it's creating max current, right? Because inside of it, it actually is an AC circuit, and it's just creating a alternating current electricity, and then it goes through a rectifier assembly and then turns it into DC. But when you put like max load on that thing is when the max magnetic field is incurred, right? And you can lose, I bet under max current, you could probably lose 15 horsepower from alternator.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why they do net horsepower ratings, because they'll kill you. Yeah. Absolutely. Because you could just basically, however many amps you're putting out, then you could figure out the work. And then you could just do how much load is being put on that by the belt. And then as far as the diameter, you could figure it out easily.
Huh. That'd be
Super
one good
simple
scientific test to do.
Yeah, because you could just
are you really losing?
You could just do amps, so you could figure out how many amps are coming out of it. You can turn that to watts. Watts turns into work. Then you could just turn how many work it does as far as RPM. Then you could turn the load RPM from your alternator to your crank.
You're getting too serious, man. Or we could just go to the drag strip and make a pass with it on and then turn it off.
Yeah, but that could be as simple as a spinning of a wheel you didn't know. You could do it math. You could do theoretical, and then you could do actual. That would be cool. So if you did a pass, right, with it on, then this is a theoretical. You're going to lose X amount of horsepower because of this. Because of that, you just went this. You're going to lose this much power, and so you're going to lose about this much more work as far as torque, right? And torque is basically how you convert to RPM so that we can get horsepower. You're going to lose this much, and then see if that works. Theoretical to actual.
I think it would be cool. BNR Racing says I use GM CS 144 alternators to best and last internal voltage regulator. 160 amp versions I use. I've never used them, but I'm sure that's the same thing that I'm using. I use Ford 3G, right? The Ford 3G was so available in the 90s and early 2000s that you could go to almost any given junkyard, find a 3.8 liter Cougar or Thunderbird, and they'd have a 160 amp 3G alternator on them, and you could buy it for $5. And
that alternator right there that he's just talking about, that's what's on the race car, on the blue race cars, that one right there. Yeah. And I think it's a over-the-counter one. I think it's out of a Cadillac, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Huh. Danny Boyd says even the old $50 value start batteries would last greater than 5 years. BNR is saying that the ultralight Crowler titanium rods and diamond pistons, trend pins versus stock Pontiac 455 pistons and rods in pounds weigh 4.5 pounds lighter total, all 8. So that's quite a bit.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. In fact, when I was working for Crowler, titanium is kind of a funny metal. It's not as strong, so you actually have to make them larger than you do a steel. But because it's a lighter metal, it comes out lighter. The biggest thing about titanium is Crowler had to perfect it, is the flame coating on there, because titanium doesn't like to rub, doesn't like to touch each other. So it will gall itself to death. So yeah, I'm telling you right now, titanium rods, that's where it's at. They're really good.
Well, that's the problem was that with the titanium, when they were doing the valves and all that stuff with the titanium, right? Weren't they galling in the guides?
Exactly.
And it's like the guides are brass. How is it galling this titanium? But it just does not like being a friction surface
at all. None. That's why the flame coating is super imperative on that.
Yeah. All right. So Levi's Backyard Performance. My fuel pumps are Magna Fuel 4303s. They are legit amp hogs. Yeah, my Bosches are not much better. He says I have a 175 amp alternator, and she's a few more electrical items away from not being enough.
Wow.
Like an LED light. Yeah, I'm telling you, those fuel pumps are no joke on the EFI application.
Well, what about my A1000, man? Doesn't pull nearly that.
Well, that's because you're only having like 8 pounds of fuel pressure.
No. This thing, I have to dumb it down. That thing will put 45 pounds of fuel pressure out at.
That thing was originally generated, like they made that specifically for 5-liter Mustangs, needing essentially the whole 1000 was 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
Right. They were made for 5-liter Mustangs. So, I mean, once you hit the limits of the 255 pump that used to be like in every Mustang, you used to be like really hating life because there wasn't much to choose from. And so when that A1000 came out, that was a big deal.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was.
but
I got, in fact, I just had mine upgraded from them themselves. They put brushless motors in
oh,
it.
that's right. You did tell me that because I thought I was going to say I thought those were brushless, but then you did tell me yours was brushed to begin with.
Mine was brushed because mine was the original one. I got that back in like 04, 05 when they first came out. But now it's got
And
a
see, I
brushless.
just finished my car in I guess the fall of 03.
Yeah.
So I mean, I didn't have any fuel pumps to choose from. There was, I think the Excel one was good for like 500 horse, and I had two of them. The only reason I had two of them because I was running nitrous, so I had one for the motor, 500 horse, and you had one backup one to run your nitrous system. So
Yeah.
and then I ran them in parallel. So, but they're still current hogs. I mean, the first time I put them in, well, I was running those original Excel pumps originally, and they both took a dump on me at Barona one week after the next. So I'd like buy a Bosch 044, replace those, and then buy another Bosch 044 the following week. So, but now that Bosch 044 pump is like the most knocked off Chinesium pump on the planet now. They bought like one legit Bosch pump from Germany and then just made one bajillion cheapo ones for like 30 to 50 bucks each, and they're not the Bosch. So yeah. All right. Bobby Frizzell says he runs an old Moroso belt drive on my water pump, so the crank isn't pulling anything.
Yeah, I have an electric water pump on mine too. Mine only turns the alternator, but it's at a reduction. It's like it's at a 1.5. It's not really 1-to-1. It's like 1.5. So it turns around 1.51 to what the crank does. So it's on a little bit of a, so that way it's not spinning at like, if I'm at 8,000 RPM, it's not going at 10,000 RPM because that alternator will explode.
Tom Brown is talking to Danny Boyd, saying all the Napa batteries are made by Johnson Control. So if that's still the case, that used to be the only place to get it done.
Yeah, it's a good battery.
Oh, let's see. Fab Race on repeat. I run a Group 27 Marine in the black car with no alternator. However, I'm going to a switched alternator when I bring it back out.
Perfect.
And that's the best way to go.
Agreed.
And if you can do, what was the weird thing about the Ford 3G was I think you could run the switch on the ground. They can run the switch on the ground side, and it actually worked better.
I just turn the power off to mine. Mine has to have power to be turned on. So I just kill it, and it just shuts it right off.
I can't remember what it is. I want to say, no, you know what it is? It's a resistive wire. They got a resistor to excite the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can run all of your voltages essentially just off of one lug and then just piggyback everything to the one lug. And then you run a resistive wire inside the car. And if it has resistance on it, it'll charge. And it was set up that way to be, it worked with the Ford fuel injection, and it worked with the alternator light in the dash.
Yeah.
It had to have the load from the light for it to run.
I have a little LED light in my dash, so when I turn it off, it glows amber to let me know that it's off. And at the end of the track, I flip it back on and it shuts back off.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty good.
Let's see. Vintage Adventure Drive says, I do have the alternator switch for that car. It'll always be off during the run, so my battery cutoff switch actually cuts off the power to the car. That's a good call.
Yeah. Now, see, on mine, I actually have mine wired so that it's got a cable that goes from all the way from the alternator to the other side of the switch without touching anything. So it goes to that side of the switch. So when you cut it off, it kills everything. So the alternator is 100% separated. Plus, it's got a 100 amp fuse on it in the back. So that way, if it ever grounds out underneath the car, it'll kill itself. And I think it's a 2-wire. So I've got a 2-wire going from the alternator all the way back. I had it on an 8-wire, but it would get hot. And when I started putting all the electronic stuff on it, when I had electric fan, electric water pump, and that big fuel pump, man, it would just get hot. So yeah, I upgraded that too. 16 feet of -8.
Wheelie King says, back when I used to plow snow, I used to use swap larger pulleys on alternators. Oh, he's talking about smaller pulleys, but
Yeah.
For more juice. And you could really feel the seat of the pants, how much horsepower a pulley swap would make. Yes. I'm telling you, that's a huge deal. And you know what? It's almost worth just doing one video where you do like 10 different passes with just alternator setups.
It makes a huge difference. I've done it on my car at the track. I would.
Well, you remember way back when Moroso used to sell the alternator pulley for the GM alternator that was like humongous, like almost big as the alternator, right?
Yes.
And it was only at high RPM would it charge. And we found that wasn't enough. Like when you start it up and you do a burnout and you pull up to the line and the whole 9 yards, that thing's not charging. It's going so slow. It's actually not even exciting the alternator.
Yeah. See, I had one of those. I took it off because I couldn't get it to charge. So I went to a crank pulley that's that size, and the alternator up top. It's the largest one that I could find at O'Reilly's that I could undo, but it's I think it's almost like 2.5 inches or 3 inches in diameter. So it will charge at 1,300 RPM. So I'm good.
Yeah. Let's see. BNR is asking about, is flame DLC on the Crowder titanium big ends? Looks like nothing else. They wouldn't tell me what the stuff is. Said to me it's top secret.
Yep, exactly. I can't tell you too because I promised them I wouldn't say anything. It's actually secret just to them, and they shared that secret with. Even though I do work for another company, I will. I just not sharing that, but they did share it to GM, and that's how GM actually started running their TI rods in the Corvettes, the titanium rods in the Corvettes. That's the only way, and that is 100% correct. They're not.
Remember when they did those LS7s with the titanium rods, and when they first came out, they were kicking rods, and everybody was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Ooh, gall! I bet it's gall." Because it just does not like friction. It's strong, it's light. Gosh, it does not like friction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
performance. A big thing now is using Hellcat pumps. Used to be using Bosch pumps, but they have been faked too many times now. So kind of unreliable. Automotive, I think, is the actual TI Automotive. I think is the actual manufacturer. I don't know. It comes in a Bosch box, but I was buying them before the Chinese were knocking them off. So I actually have a good stash of them. I got, I think, 4 total. But I figured they were going to stop making them one day, and I was going to be up, creek without a paddle because my fuel system is made up of those things. So, but yeah, you're right. They've been knocked off by the Chinese, something serious. And the problem was, I want to say when I went to buy them last time on Amazon, they didn't even sell the one in the Bosch box because it had been knocked off so much that they were actually knocking off the box too. And so you couldn't tell what was legit and what was not. It had the seal and everything on. Okay. BNR says that Professor P, the Crowder titanium lube for the rod bolts is that actually Detroit diesel head bolt lube.
Oh, he's talking about the lube. I thought he was talking about the side of the car.
No, I think he was talking about that earlier. This is.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Oh, he's talking about the lube. Oh, yeah. I can't tell you the lube either. Sorry, because it doesn't like it, it's an actual. It's a product. It's a. Unfortunately, I thought you were talking about the flame coating on the side of the rods. I'm sorry. I really am sorry.
Oh, he did ask about that earlier. Okay. So Danny Boyd says wide open throttle switched battery cutoff. You can do that with EFI. I think a carburetor would be a little bit difficult, but I mean a micro switch, you could do it with a micro switch. Let's see. This is the most awesome screen name I've seen in a while. Old Sketchmo. 1 inch or less intake manifold vacuum at wide open throttle means the carburetor is properly sized. Yes. It'll slowly go up as RPM increases, and you'll get to a point where you need a larger carburetor. But if you're hitting the traps and that sucker's still pulling 1 inch or less,
perfect.
You're fine. Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. Not great for probably driving around town, but great for the track.
Yeah, it's probably runs scalded runs. Yeah. But man, yeah, drivability, poo. Okay. Let's see. Danny Boy is no larger on the alternator, spins the alt slower.
Yeah.
Larger. Oh yeah, he corrected himself. It was just
okay.
Let's see. BNR Racing says those Panko titanium rods used in those C5, C6, Z06 Corvette had big inside checks. Head guy at Crowder told me, huh?
He means cheeks, the cheeks on the side.
Oh, huh?
Yeah, and he said that his rods won't do that. So basically, it's and the thing is too is that I don't believe Crowder's making rods anymore. In fact, the last time we called them, when I called them, they got rid of their whole.
Well, that sucks.
rod.
They used to make custom rods.
Yeah, they sure did.
Yeah, you could literally call them up and make the most oddballest ass rod there was on the planet. They just say, what big inside do you want? Do you want it cracked? Do you want it freaking cut? What was the other thing?
Power.
Yeah. What's the width, the big end width, and the small end width, and then the wrist pin size, and then they literally poop you out a set of 8 rods just like it.
Yeah, and they said power and RPM.
Let's see. All right. Old Sketchmo. So why then are all 4-barrel carburetors flow rated at 1.5 inches of vacuum? Because I believe that's where the Venturi is efficient. That's the efficiency number of the Venturi. You have to have a signal below it for it to actually atomize fuel.
Yeah, and it's like an industry standard. It's the same reason why they do the same thing with the cylinder heads at 28 inches of vacuum. It's the same thing, but that's the reason why. And 2 barrels, I think, are done at 3 inches of vacuum, aren't they? Aren't they done at 3?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? That number right there wasn't an industry standard. So if you go back and look in like the 1960s, you had the Carter carburetor, which was rated at a different. They were all CFM different, but they would have the same numbers. And you're like, why is the Carter just not run as good as my Thermoquad or my Holly, right? And that's because the Holly was rated at, say, 750, and so was the Carter ABS, but it was a completely different measurement of.
And it was a wet scale. You see, the other ones were flowed dry, and the other ones were flowed wet, so they went to a standard. So that way, everybody would flow them at the same vacuum. And even to this day, some people flow them at wet. Some people still flow them at dry.
And I tend to disagree with whichever one is the one that makes the larger CFM number.
That's the dry.
That's the misleading one. That's the one that screws everybody up.
Because it's like you don't know, because you're going to have there's going to be a particle of fuel in there to be there to displace the air. So you're going to have less airflow when you're wet flowing them. But if you have a good airflow wet number, then that's the way to do it. All the VRSs are wet flowed.
BNR says, what should I use, Professor P, for connecting rod pairs side clearance
as big as possible
for the titanium Crowers? Crower just told me to let the oil flow. Has 100%. To be ground into the 455 crankshaft.
Exactly. I would be 15 or above, probably even 20. It doesn't really matter at that point, because remember, if you take the area of 15 thousandths all the way around, it actually is larger than the bearing clearances of the bearing. So your bearing becomes the restricting force at that point. He is absolutely correct. Just let it flow. I say that all the time. Just let it flow out. The bigger the better on that one, and you're not going to hurt anything. It's a race car, and you're going to have a high volume pump on there for that. That's why a high volume pump is needed when you're at, like, say, 17 or above. I would say probably be up near. I would set them up just like you would an aluminum rod. Is what I would tell people is set them up as far as side clearances like you would an aluminum, and you'll be just fine.
And the trick to those like aluminum rods, when you're not running a cast iron rod or forged steel rod, the trick to them used to be you always ran a 2050 weight or above for oil, and it was really just that side clearance cushion where it would lubricate between the two metals, because aluminum rods will gall something serious. They're worse than titanium. But also aluminum rods, they stretch and you only get like so many runs out of them. But
that's true. But if you set them up correctly, and it really comes down to RPM on the aluminums and how much boost you're putting to them, because remember, you're going to compress and extend on those aluminum. But there's people who run aluminum on the street and it's totally fine. It's the power adder and the RPM that killed the aluminums is what it is.
And then BNR saying, what Crowder rods were the best used by the fast Pontiac V8 drag racer? Said a lot of people used the Crowder rods because they were top of the line. I mean, between them and Oliver rods, those would probably be the two best rods you could buy in the United States.
The Cookie Monster has got Crowder rods in it. It's got a Crowder crank in it. And I'm actually, look, here's the thing is that now that I'm working at, the Edelbrock group, I am doing all the Lunati stuff. So I'm taking all that knowledge, all that experience that I picked up while I was at Crowder, and I'm bringing it over to Lunati, and I'm designing really, really, really cool stuff that I cannot talk about, but I can tell you that it's going to be right up the alley of everybody. In this, we're going to be bringing out the Signature Series, which is nothing new, but it's going to be a whole new line of stuff that's going to be really for the power adder and the people in that 1,000 to 2,000 horsepower range. And I'm telling you, it's going to be basically turnkey, set it and forget it. If you remember the old, set it and forget it, microwave oven type thing, it's going to be just like that. So just be looking for some cool stuff coming up, because I can tell you right now, I'm testing some cool stuff.
And I'm going to say something here. I know Professor P doesn't want to say anything on this, but I hate China. Professor P just killed all 100% made in America. That's not necessarily what's happened with Crowder. What happened with Crowder is Bruce Crowder died like in 2018. And then from that point forward, it was no longer Bruce Crowder running the company. It was like you had people they're not car people.
No, the person running the company didn't have a driver's license. I didn't mean to cuss, but that was literally the reason. The person who runs the company never driven a car. And I shouldn't be talking about this, and I don't like talking bad about people. So
that's why I was gonna speak about it.
Okay, sorry.
And keep I got angry. But I just
got angry.
So what we're looking at here, we're in a unique spot in America, okay? And it's not only is the Chinese just flooding our market with cheapy junk, right? But the other thing is this: we're at the turnover point for all of hot rodding, right? So you're looking at most of the hot rodding started around 1950s. Everybody worked all the way up until they pretty much retired and then died. They sold their companies. That was 2005 and 6. When shit started going bad in 2006, 7, 8, that's when companies all got sold. That's when the guys that originally founded the companies got out. Okay? There was a few, I don't know what you would call them, hang-ons or Klingons or whatever you want, that kept their companies. And when the market dipped again in 2020 for COVID, those were gone. And what you're seeing is a big turnover, a lot of that stuff. But see, the Chinese aren't helping because they're flooding the market and they're stealing. Like, okay, here's what I hate about this whole thing. All right. The immoral part is there's two parts to it. One, they buy one Edelbrock Performer RPM intake manifold for a Chevrolet small block. And that was Vic Edelbrock's legacy. It took him 50 years to develop that intake manifold.
Yeah.
50 years of trial and error and sending things back, all the hard work, the toil, the research and development, and then you buy one, you reverse engineer it, and you butt fuck Vic Edelbrock is what happens. All right. And it was the man's legacy.
Yeah.
And then they take it without any real effort on their own. And then they make people work and make this intake manifold that literally work for nothing. That's what happens in communist countries. You work for nothing. We pay you what we feel you're worth. And if you don't work, we shoot your grandmother in the face. That's communism. That's how it works.
True.
And so it's immoral on two grounds. And I don't think, people understand how bad it is, because once they learn this technology, the first place they apply it, the technology that they steal from connecting rods or crankshafts or hardening of forged steel, and they apply it to a military application before they apply it to anything else. So they make their military stronger, better, bigger before they make your car stronger, better, bigger. and you're literally cutting your own throat. So it's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's a bad policy, and time will tell how this works out. But I'm betting you're seeing the tail end of the professional products engine line. Let's see. Okay, and I know another China rant, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was only 4 minutes. So it's not bad.
Yeah, I was trying to make it as serious as I could, so people really understand what it's about. That's why I hate the Chinese stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So Danny Boyd says, Bruce Crowder used to answer tech questions in a Hot Rod magazine, or was it Carcraft in the late 70s and early 80s? Bruce Crowder was like an awesome dude. He used to sponsor almost everything we did out at Verona for Match Race Madness.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd be out there at the booth himself selling parts.
Yeah, he was a good guy. BNR, if you can get a hold of John Wilburn, he'll give you my phone number. I don't mind you calling me if you got some of these questions. You don't have to wait for this kind of stuff because I can answer these stuff. You can text it to me and I can answer it to you. Since you're actually asking like real legit questions, I have no problem helping you out with those.
Tom Brown says, on an engine with high port velocity with higher carb signal, they will need a larger carb because it will draw more fuel per CFM than lower velocity. Is this correct?
Velocity means basically the velocity in the port means nothing at the base of the carburetor because all it is airflow at that point. The velocity is only going to get higher as it enters the port, and it's going to be X big, and then as it gets smaller and smaller and smaller down to the valve, that's where the velocity increases. But at the mouth of the car, the bottom of the carburetor, that's just CFM at that point. And then that's the plenum. And then from the plenum out, that's when the velocity starts to happen. So all you're talking about is how much airflow is going through that. And that's the reason why they're doing that pressure drop thing, because it's a whole different scale. It's not really a phase change, but you're basically changing velocity as it goes down.
So in this, I would have to say on my take on this one, I would have to say no. Okay. And what you're looking at is this is 100%. Think about it like this. If you had the same carburetor and an engine that you put on the dyno, let's say it had a dual plane, it was just like a Chevrolet small block with a dual plane. If you pulled the dual plane intake manifold off and you put a single plane intake manifold on, changing nothing else, even the carburetor is exactly the same, you will have to change the jets on the carburetor because the signal is completely different to the base of the carburetor than it is with the dual plane. The dual plane pulls it from two different points, right? It's two different planes. And you got completely different signal on both sides because one's got a larger volume, one of them's got a smaller volume. When you get to the single plane, it's pulling in 360 degrees. That's why if you ever looked at the old Offenhauser 360 intake manifolds, that's a single plane. It's pulling at 360 degrees, so the signal is strong. And generally what happens is you normally add more fuel. And so that's what the whole point of changing the jets is, because you've changed the signal on the carburetor. It really has nothing to do with the port velocity at all. It's all signal to the base of the carburetor.
Exactly. Once you get to the bottom of the carburetor, that all just goes out the window right there because it's all just about airflow through that.
Tom Brown says, I saw a video of Racer the other day that was using compressed air system. Very cool setup. That's the new thing.
It's actually something that was done. We did in college way back when, back in the 90s. It's just now trickling down. Let's say it was something that's people have been using for a long time.
So Danny Boyd says, I bet the Chinese have or will rip off Cope's parts. I bet Cope has probably run into this himself. If he's still in here, he could probably tell you about it. But I mean, they don't leave anything unturned. They literally rob people's intellectual rights to something.
And then you see them at PRI out there they'll be out in the back 40 out there on the walkways,
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Professional Products was the first one I ever seen where it was like literally you could have sitting side by side. It was like an Edelbrock intake manifold, and then it looked exactly the same, just no lettering on it. And you're like, my gosh, talk about, like knocking something off. You literally knocked it off down to like the bolt hole design, Oh, and Bobby Frizilla hits the nail on the head. Can't blame it all on China. People keep buying the bullshit to save $20 so they will keep making the garbage.
Absolutely.
I've been saying this the whole time. The money that you save, all right, because I remember the big comparison. The big comparison was when the professional products folks started making blocks. Okay, they bought like Ford Racing block and a Dart block, and then the World Products Man of War block for a small block Ford. They started knocking them off, and man, the market's getting flooded with these super cheap blocks. They were like $500-$600 for a block. At $2,000, you got your Dart block, right? Well, here was the difference. You bought the $500 block, and then you have to do $1,500 worth of machine work to it to make it straight. And then by the time you're done with that, it costs just as much as the Dart block, and the Dart block's made of better material.
It's better steel. And it doesn't fracture, it doesn't dust, it doesn't turn to powder when you put, oil to it, and it doesn't just put, cast iron into your engine.
Let's all right. So Mean Street Mopar has just shown up. Okay, so BNR says, man, I'm bummed about Crowder today. Don't be bummed, brother. I mean, it's just like that's what happens when the wrong person's in charge. They go backwards. But in the reality,
they're unwilling to move. You had to move out of Southern California. There's no way you're going to run a company like that in Southern California anymore, because everything cannot be done in San Diego anymore. Before, all the heat treating was done in LA. It was done. All the stuff was done in San Diego. It all has to be shipped out of state. It has to come back. Then it has to go be shipped back out of state for different things and come back. And every time you're shipping out and shipping back in California, it's super expensive. It just wasn't worth it anymore.
I think there's a union on the truckers, right? And then they're like a union trade when you go in state and out of state.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it just moving stuff around at that point, and they were just unwilling. Even if we would have even at the time when I was with Crow, I told them, said, look, you're going to have to either move to Yuma, or we're going to have to get out of this state somewhere where there's a train, somewhere where there's a little bit bigger of a hub, or just something. But we can't stay here.
Yeah, because unfortunately, they used to have the train there. They used to have semi trucks. That's what the whole 8 was made for.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the train line that went through there, everything was there. But then when that all started dying, and they just wanted all industry out, and every time the EPA would come in, it was a $50,000.
Yeah,
it was $50,000 fine. And they just would show up, and they're just like, okay, well, how many $50,000 fines are you going to find this month or the next month? And it was just like, that's how they justified their existence until you just didn't pay it anymore, and then they would just shut you down. So it was just,
and we were seeing that, like, even when we were out there racing in Verona, was Crowder parts were significantly pricier than everyone else's stuff, and that's because you were getting the California cost of living tax on top of it. That's what's killing Offenhauser right now. Their foundry and where they make all their stuff is still in like San Obispo, or I don't remember, but it's somewhere in Southern California. And it used to be the mecca of hot rodding, but California screwed it up so bad that it pretty much just pushed everyone out. You either couldn't do business or you couldn't afford to eat.
The mecca of automotive now is literally southwestern Tennessee or northwestern Mississippi, in that hub. And you have all the companies that are worth anything are in that little 50-mile radius now. So there's a lot.
Awesome. If you looked right there, golly, you could build anything you wanted all up within like one day.
Huh, that's funny. That's not where I live.
Well, that's because you work for that one of the companies.
I work for one of those companies. Yeah, that's right. I think there's 5 or 6 in that whole area right there that are massive. So yeah.
So old Sketchmo is saying 620 CFM flow at 1-inch drop is all 750 rated at 1.5-inch drop flows. If you did the math, I would assume that's probably right.
I didn't do the math, so I couldn't tell you.
BNR says that Dallas, the Offenhauser Pontiac 360. our V8 360 intake is good. The Offenhauser, it is good on some things. It was never good for the Buick stuff. I've never owned one, so I've never tested one. They used to make a really bitchin' dual quad setup for a Buick 430 and 455 where you could put 2 quadrajets jets on it. I thought that was badass. I always wanted to try one.
I have an Offenhauser on the green card right now. Works awesome. I have it's a dual single Holly 1920s on it.
All the Buick guys beat up, but that's the only intake that's made, right? Like, well, I guess they used to make some single planes, some 360s.
Yeah, they made a lot of one-off stuff,
like 215 Buick and Rover.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to go back to that guy was saying the thing he's not factoring in though is the water displacement. Yeah. He's not you got to factor in the not water, but you got to factor in the fuel displacement, because even at 1 inch and 1.5, the water is heavier, or not water. The fuel is heavier, so that's going to move differently at 1 or at 1.5. So you need to factor that in, because it's not a linear scale, because it's weight, and as you accelerate something that's heavier rather than an air molecule, which still has weight but not nearly as much as fuel, you're going to be moving things differently. Plus, then you're going to at some point you're going to have a phase change of the fuel where it vaporizes. So you got to factor that in too, and there's a lot of math involved in it. It's not just a 1-to-1 scale like that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just go back to that, but there was a few things I was wanting to.
Danny Boyd says the Chinese metallurgy is typically bad.
Oh, 100%.
I remember the very first time I saw this. The very first time. See, way back in the States, the Chinese, it was the Kmart fiasco, wasn't it? The Kmart fiasco, where they knocked off all the oil filters in the United States, right?
Yes.
And they sold them all to Kmart, and everybody was buying them because they're cheap. They were like 25 cents for a filter, right? And everybody was buying them. Well, next thing you know, you got all these engine failures. Everybody's shit started breaking and burning up and like kicking rods out. And then come to find out, there's not even a filter in the damn thing.
No, it was
right.
Nothing.
There was nothing inside there. It was literally just a canister with an O-ring on it, and people were buying them, and they were running them. The next time I saw it was when there used to be like 5 different big chains of auto parts stores in the United States. See, O'Reilly's is an amalgamation of like 10 different big auto parts chain stores.
Kragen, Shucks, and Checkers.
You had those 3 were under one. And if you remember, you go back and look in like the 90s, Kragen, Shucks, and Checkers used to sponsor NHRA races.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had Western Auto was another big one.
Chief
Auto Parts, CarQuest, Bumper to Bumper. Napa was a big one. Napa's where you went and got the good quality aftermarket parts, right? That were made in America. Now, all the Eklund brand, that was I guess that was the hill they wanted to die on, was be made in America. And they were up until like, dang, I don't know, when was that? When was I building that Ford truck? 2016?
Yeah, I'll say 15, 16. Yeah, that was right around there.
Shortly after that, they stopped making made in America only parts because they couldn't afford to compete. But what it was is those cheapy auto parts stores started coming in. You had Discount Auto Parts, I think. And anyway, all those got bought up and put into one. That became O'Reilly's. But right before it became O'Reilly's, all the tools started showing up on the shelves were Chinesium.
Yep.
And I went and got an adjustable wrench one time from there, from one of them cheapy parts stores. And I walked in, and they used to have the adjustable wrench just hanging by the little hole in the end of the wrench, just upside down. And I grabbed one, and I took it up to the front, and I bought it. It was just for what I wanted, whatever I was doing. I don't even remember what I was doing. And when I got out there, I couldn't put the wrench on. And I'm like, adjusting it, like, well, there's no rocket science to this. I mean, how is this wrench not fit on here? And so do I have a metric adjustable wrench? And I look at it, and the jaw is not even straight.
That's right. It's crooked. Yeah.
I thought the same. No wonder you can't get the bolt off, because it's got at least there's like one thing that it needs, and it needs a parallel surface.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what was funny is, like, I literally, in frustration, you're like, This is how my day's going. I need a wrench. I crawl up under there. I'm dicking with it for 20 minutes. It wouldn't work. And then you just smash the thing on the ground and it shatters into like 4 different pieces. Yep. That, my friends, is Chinese.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's see. B&R says there's no core shift on vintage Offenhauser intakes. I bet they probably put a lot of effort into that. Yeah.
Yeah. The one that I have on this car right now is amazing. Literally, it's an amazing. Now I've been working on cores and working on how intakes and whatnot, and looking at them. This is an amazing intake on this one right here. It's really good.
Oh, this is a question that's been asked a few times on here. Clayton's Toolbox, 2 valve questions. What valve seat angles do you recommend for low lift flow? Do undercutting valve stems flow much better than the regular valves?
Yes, always back cut for low lift numbers. If you back cut, it's going to help your low and mid lift numbers. When you back cut is where it's going to hurt. It is going to be up in the upper RPM. So like all my Slant 6s, I'm only lifting them to 400. I'm not RPM. I'm not doing anything. So I back cut every single one of those because it helps with that low lift number. But as it goes across the valve, that's when you're going to have problems as far as getting it in. But when you get a high lift, it gets past that back cut, and that's when it really helps. So I would always back cut my valves.
So
for street driving. So I should
back cutting for me is like, well, you're increasing the port without increasing the port, right? It's like it makes things flow so much smoother without even porting the head. So if you're in a restrictive class,
Yeah, to a point though, because
right. But if you're in a restrictive class where you can't do any port work, that's the best thing you can possibly do right there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you're in your lift rule class. Absolutely.
We've talked about valve seat angles before, and there are valve seat angles that's going to improve low lift flow. But what happens is it's going to sacrifice so much stuff up top that the 45-degree valve seat angle is a compromise between all of it. So you get decent low lift numbers and you get high RPM capability. And otherwise, if you cut them just for low lift, it'll never run up top.
That's right.
It'll never make any horsepower. And so just stick with the 45 degrees. That's the best compromise you can do.
And back cut the valves if it's a low lift number. Like this one here, this cam I put in here is 440 as far as the lift at the valve. And I'm not spinning this thing over 5,000 RPM. I back cut that thing all day long. I got that seat literally at the edge of the valve right there just for that reason. So I'm getting all the low lift I can, the port velocity.
It's good to see Ron Ward here.
Ron Ward, what's up, sucker?
He's the voice of the No Name Nationals.
Right?
Yeah, if you've never met Ron or you've never been to the No Name Nationals, I'm telling you, this guy could talk all day long about anybody that comes up there and races, and then he'll be the first one to high five you down in the pits and give you a cold one, right? I mean, I don't know how he can do it. I do this 2-hour show and my voice is like, that's it, I'm out of here, So Tom Brown says, Shane, can you please let me know what the new fuel mileage is on the Lizard King when you have the info?
I've already got some info, and I'll tell you really quick. I'm actually running it at, I just got new jets, 55 jets. I got 50. I started with 58s. I put 56s in them. I'm going to go to 55s. But I've got that thing cruising down the freeway at 75 miles an hour at about 15.2 to 1 right now, which is perfect at 45 degrees of timing with the vacuum in. No pinging, no nothing. It's going just fine. And when I step on it, it's about 12.2. I'm trying to bring down that full throttle number. But man, it's up there because I drove it all Saturday, all week so far, and I'm still over half a tank of fuel. So it's getting good. And but I'm not going to tell you the number until after my video. Then I could talk about it. How about that? Because the video is going to drop about running this weekend, and then the mileage will be the following weekend. But I can tell you it's pretty good. It's actually better than it's ever been.
So Dylan Levi said, also, not only did China not help the U.S., but we didn't either with corporate greed causing part of the problem. That's called capitalism.
Yeah.
The problem,
capitalizing everything.
Capitalism isn't the greatest thing that ever invented, but it's also not the worst, right? It really pays the worker their worth. The problem is when the worker's getting paid $25 an hour and the head honcho running the company that you've never even met or seen or walked the floor or anything like that makes $12.5 million in that one quarter. That's the disparity. That's the problem. That's the corporate greed. You look at those companies where there's a huge margin between the CEO of the company and the basic workers. That's where the problem lies. The way it should work is like literally you got the person doing the work, and then about another 10% should be the management, and another 10% on the top of that should be the leadership, and another 10% on top of that should be probably you're looking at the engineering staff or the people that create the stuff they're making, and then you got the CEO, right? So he should be about another 10% above the engineer, and that's not what's happening. What's happening is it's lopsided. It's hella lopsided because it'll be your engineering staff, and then your board, and then you'll have the CEO on top of the board, and the board will get some ridiculous amount of money. Every board member will be like $3 million per year, and then you get the CEO, and they'll be like $15 million a year. While the engineer here is only making $180,000 a year, right? That's the problem. It used to be all about profit sharing so that there was a middle class, so you had your neighbor you could lean on. It's not like that anymore. And I would have to say it came from within our own government. That's my take. When you ship stuff overseas and you give them incentives to do such,
NAFTA did it.
NAFTA did it. I'm going to tell you that right now.
NAFTA did it.
So,
we're falling behind.
no, I'm only 7 minutes behind.
Okay.
I'm not going to get stuck on that.
No more China stuff. Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Clayton's Toolbox says undercut stems, not back cut.
Undercut.
Is that what we were?
He's talking about the stem undercut. I thought you said back cut. I'm sorry. Yeah, undercut stems. Always got undercut the stems. That's always good. Yeah, I know he's talking about. That's where it goes down to the valve. So the thinner, the better on that.
Right. It's taking up less room, so your port gets larger.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I really thought you meant back cut. I'm sorry, but undercut them. Yeah, always do that. Absolutely.
Miss Cat G, guess 4V Cleveland's could use low lift help. No, the Cleveland 4V heads on a big cubic inch engine are fine. If you go back and look at Pro Stock days when they were running 331 cubic inch Clevelands, the big ticket used to be filling the port because the velocity of air actually runs at the top of the port. So the bottom of the port really gains nothing except for creating a larger area of volume for the velocity to decrease. So they used to fill in the bottom, and it would make the velocity higher.
That's right. Yeah. And remember that an engine below the cylinder head's dumb. It's just a port. Literally, it's just a port with a valve. The cubic inch of the engine underneath, it creates a low pressure zone. It's the atmosphere that's coming in. So the port doesn't know if it's a 301 or 455 or whatever's underneath it. It just knows what the air is going through it. So a 301 at 8,000 RPM is going to flow the same amount as a 455 at, say, let's just arbitrarily 4,500. So it's just the velocity. So so if you're at a 301, you want something at, say, 3,000 RPM. Like you said, you just fill the bottom of it, you create the high velocity, and away you go.
And the good thing is when you fill the bottom of it, generally you can radius to short turn and make it even better.
Even better. That's right. Keep it suspended. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Fab Race Mod Repeat says, don't forget the tools that didn't say China. They said chrome vanadium, which is apparently that's the Chinese in for guaranteed to break.
Absolutely. Shatter into metal pieces and
fragmentation.
Right into your arms where you have a permanent scar, you know what I mean? Because you can only buy one socket on a Sunday afternoon that works and needs to, go into your 1/2 inch, Ingersoll Rand, the real Ingersoll Rand, that's running at 200 pounds of pressure. And then when it blows apart, it embeds into your arm right here. You're pulling chunks out of that chrome vanadium. Absolutely. Most
of the old parts Ron Ward says currently making 19.2 miles per gallon on the Roadrunner with a 33 3310-1 Holly, which is a 780 CFM. That's the one that they used on the DZ302 from the factory.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I wonder if that's the one I gave Ron. I gave him something like that. Maybe I give him a 3310-2.
All I can say is I'm getting really close to the magic number I've always wanted. I've said is 30. I'm telling you right now, I'm getting really, really close to that. At 70 miles an hour, not at 60, at 70. That's the thing.
So Bobby Frizzell says, I put the VRS 750 on my ramp truck with the 460. Truck runs better and gets better fuel mileage now.
Absolutely. I'm telling you that they're amazing carburetors. I was telling Dallas, in fact, before it even came out, I was telling Dallas, we took one. It was a 750. We took it right off of an engine that was running like it was making 750 horsepower. You know, it was a like 416, like probably LS. We took it right off. It was still hot. We put it right on the Suburban, and we drove it to lunch that day and did nothing to it. Put it right on there, idled perfectly, and drove it to lunch. I said, this is an amazing car.
All right. So Ron Ward says, Shane, recently you told me an engine will make more horsepower with 2050 than with 1030. I'm pushing 80 PSI at cold idle now. Would 2050 explode my oil filter when cold? I would say yes.
Probably.
The Buicks have this problem too, where they blow the oil filter off the threads.
Yeah. Now, I run it depends on your oil filter and how long it is too, because it's about how fast the oil can go through the filter when it's still cold. I'm running VR1 2050 in my Slant, and it's actually getting better mileage with it. But what I do is I'm running a really tall filter on it, and I give it a little bit of time to warm up, and that's the only thing that's bad about it. So yes, just get it warmed up a little bit.
Oh. All right. So he says that's not the one I gave him. He's had this one for years. I couldn't remember. I knew you were a 3310 guy. That's your favorite. That's the vacuum 780 vacuum secondary. So was just wondering if that was the one I gave you or not. I was really looking for one of those, and Ron found me one within like 10 minutes, and it was like on his way home, and I'm like, man, do I really want to drop this kind of coin on a carburetor? Because I mean, I want to say it was $75 or $80, but then I'm going to have to spend the money to rebuild it and then make it work for my application. Just it wasn't worth it. It was easier just to put the quadrajet jet on there. I could get it within the ballpark. and it cost me $0. Free 99, as they call them.
Free 99.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. Tom Brown says, Shane, if you're getting around 26, 27 miles per gallon, are you going to do any aero mods to get 30?
No, because that's why I'm using number 70 as my metric. On this car, I did the coefficient of drag and the cross-sectional area of this car when I did all the math on that. So 70 is about the number where I don't have to do anything. 75 is where it really starts to get exponential, and then 80 is even worse. So 70 to 75 is my numbers where I'm trying to really focus in on it on a car, and I wanted to do that, but at the same time, then that takes away the whole point of having this kind of car. If I can get 30 miles to the gallon on a car where I haven't done anything to it, I'm just using thermal efficiency of the cylinder heads, running it as hot as I can, running a heat riser to the bottom of the carburetor, helping the vaporization, running as much vacuum advance as I can, running as lean as possible, doing everything I can to that point. I think that would be the best that I'm trying to do with it. I don't want to change any of this stuff. That's why my metric is 70 to 75 is for that reason. But if I did that, I would just get a different car because I don't want to. I mean, I love how a Dart looks. I mean, a Dart's just like the best car on planet Earth. So, just my opinion, though.
Well, I just like the small economy cars of the 60s. I mean, all three manufacturers had them kind of nailed. If you look at it, I mean, that was the height of American engineering and ingenuity and design. And because I really think when they built these cars, the first thing that they looked at was aesthetics. More than anything, they looked at aesthetics. They didn't look at safety. They didn't look at power. They didn't look at any of that. The cornering ability. They didn't look at any of that. It was about aesthetics. It was appealing to the eye. And somewhere around 1987, that stopped. You know, it really what hit them hard was 1973 when they came out with the mandated ugly crash bumpers that Ralph Nader mandated through the government. What's the government doing telling us how to build cars? They can't
Right.
even fucking government. So, let alone car build.
Right.
Yeah, I'd never understood that. Why didn't somebody from Detroit say, stay in your own pie? Shut the fuck up. You know, like, I don't know. Maybe Lee Iacocca would have told him that because he was pretty ballsy when it came to stuff like that. But I don't know. The mandated bumpers came, and then all the other problems came. Like, if you think about it, you know what ruined the American diesels? The American emissions mandate.
That's right.
That's the same thing that happened to the American automotive industry in 1971 when they mandated unleaded fuel. Every car has to run unleaded fuel. And it has to run on 87 octane. Not just unleaded fuel, but 33 octane less than what they were running on the pump the year before. So it was like, oh man, we went from good high octane gas, which actually helped us win World War II, to dog water. You know, 87 octane was about as bad as it gets. If you go to like Colorado, it's like 85 octane because altitude helps. But still, that's a significantly lower number. And then what ended up happening was the cam profiles changed, the compression ratios changed. You know, it was more like of a reactive thing where they had to make what they already had run on that junk. And, you know, the ones that killed the most was like, that I really feel sorry for, was like Ford Motor Company when they came out with the Cleveland, like literally like a year before. And then they had to neuter it from like 10.5 to 1 compression to 8 to 1 compression. It was designed for 10.5.
Yeah.
It was meant for that. And then same thing, 400 Mopar, you know, the 400 Cleveland Ford, the GM 403, those are all products of heightened emission standards. And it wasn't until you threw the 1960s at that 1970s turd did they run. That's what helped them, you know. But God, we went backwards so bad, like 1971 and 2. Yeah, but I love the old cars because the aesthetics was first and foremost, and they all look good going down the road. It doesn't matter what manufacturer it is, well, with the exception of like AMC. You know, most of their stuff just looked weird. But it's also what I found now is like, you know, a Gremlin. I used to laugh at a Gremlin in high school. Dude, I'd drive a Gremlin today, no problem. You know? So Ron Ward says the Chrysler K car was the epitome of making a good car look bad.
Yeah, I want to back up one real quick because I didn't. There was one thing I forgot to say on this car. He says that thing is the aerodynamics profile of a filing cabinet. It's actually worse because the grill is inset. So because the grill sets back and the hood's down, it actually captures air there, and the higher it goes, the farther that eddy gets pushed out in front of the car. So it's grabbing air and literally catching it. So, and that at 75 is when this little area right in here becomes your absolute worst friend. And then with this bumper and how it drags underneath, and because this sticks out further, it would be something if it went the other way. Because it sticks out further, it actually makes it even worse. So that's the real problem.
So Clayton's Toolbox is saying a buddy has a VW Carmagia. He can't figure out how to get the alternator off. Have you removed an alternator on VW before?
100 times,
We have
100,000
no
times.
real VW experience. Is the thing like shaft driven through the inside? Is it?
Yeah. So there's basically going to be a strap. So first off, take the belt off, take all the wires off. There's going to be a strap that holds the alternator to the tower. It's going to be just the little tower where the fill tower is at. And then there's going to be 4 bolts that go through the fan shroud that hold the fan on. If you take those 4 off and you take that off and it's got a generator on it technically, or maybe an alternator, you can usually finesse them out, and it's going to have a fan on the end of it, and it's going to have a 32 millimeter bolt that's going to be on the back of that. If it's never been taken off and you can't get it out, some of those I've seen that you can't seem to get them out, then you have to take the fan shroud off. But if you've gone that far, it's literally take the cable out through the fan shroud, and then you're going to have 2 bolts that are going to go in the side on the cooling tin. So you're going to have 2 bolts that go in here. Sometimes there's a little tube in the front and the back that goes straight down to the cooling tin, and then that fan shroud will come straight up, and you're going to have to pull it all the way up because it's going to have some sort of oil cooler in the back, and that's a pain in the butt. So that's why I try to tell people, if you can try to get it out through that first without pulling out the tin, or you can loosen all the bolts on the tin, rock it back, the fan shroud back just a little bit to get that out. But it's going to be 4 bolts here, strap, take that off, pull that out first. If you can't get it out, then take the tool, the tower off.
Ron Ward says that reduction of octane and reduction of zinc were a combined effort between CARB, EPA, and the OEM to take advantage of planned obsolescence.
I agree with that.
I think that's probably true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they don't want people having cars like this anymore, built with real steel, that's thick, and that you could replace parts on, and literally you have a forever car right here. So this is the ultimate in recycling. Once this car is here, it doesn't cost anything to have this car remade. All I got to do is just keep it on the road, and optimally, if I can get this thing over 25 to 30 miles per gallon, it actually is better for the environment to have this car here for the rest of my life than it is for me to replace it with a car that gets 50 miles per gallon every 7 years. So that's the reason why it's planned obsolescence. I believe I've said this when I was in college. I talked about this. I even wrote a speech about this in an environmental class where everybody was these hippie tree loving, leftists, and I was the exact opposite. And they would always talk about my gas guzzling car and how their Tesla got something better. And I'm like, well, a Tesla is the absolute worst thing. Have you ever seen how much diesel it takes to make cobalt? They just didn't want to hear that. They're like 50 miles a gallon, 50 miles a gallon. They didn't understand it. It doesn't just magically appear. It's got to be built and transported here.
Well, that's the thing is, like, we get lost with the overall in number, right?
That's right.
Okay.
How does it get here?
Well, think about this. You've done this before. You've seen the result of the in number.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll tell you, I'll explain it to you. If you have 2 cars and they're going to drive from, let's say, San Diego to Los Angeles, and they're going to drive up 5. And let's say they're leaving in a good, reasonable traffic time. Okay. But they're starting from in town and at, like, I don't know, let's just say the 32nd Street Naval Shipyard, 32nd Street, and then they got to get on the interstate. They got to drive to Los Angeles.
Right up to 5.
Yeah, exactly. Right up to 5. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One leaves 10 minutes after the other. Okay. 10 minutes, just 10 whole minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The first car leaves, they're running 70 miles an hour. Okay. It's going to take 1 hour or so to get to Los Angeles. Los Angeles area, but just to make it simple, it actually takes about 1 hour and 45 minutes, but we'll just say 1 hour. And in 1 hour, that dude's going to travel 70 miles, you would think, right? No, because what happened when they started in town, the driving through town, catching those lights, decreased their average speed down to, like, say, 50 miles an hour. Okay. The second car leaves 10 minutes later. He's running 75 miles an hour. Okay. He should be able to overtake the other car or finish almost the exact same time. But because of differences in the town traffic, there's no real difference in time between the cars at all. And matter of fact, when they show up, the car that's running 75 miles an hour is probably going to be 10 minutes or greater behind the other one. Mm-hmm. And that's looking at the end result. The end result was this one ran 75, this one ran 70. And you're just looking at those basic numbers, but you didn't take into account what happened when they were going around town. How long did it take this guy get up to 75 miles an hour? Was this car going 70 from the time it started? You don't take into account any of that stuff. And when you look at the old cars, it took, yes, a hell of a lot of oil and coal and all that stuff to make those panels because it's made of quality stuff. But the reality of it is, after the car's first 20 years on the planet, the overall consumption of fuel of that car is going to be significantly less than what that Prius gets. Absolutely. Or what that Toyota Corolla gets. Because the Toyota and the Prius suffer from the same problem. And the same problem that they have, that Dart doesn't have, is that after 6 years, no one gives a fuck about that car, and it goes right in a landfill.
Exactly.
And then we crush it, and we make a whole new shitbox Prius.
And the thing about a Prius too is that everything on it's plastic, and it's not made here, so it has to be on a ship, a container ship, to come here. This car was made right here. There was no transportation fees.
That car was actually made in Fenton, Missouri.
This one right here was actually made in L.A.
Oh, okay. So it's a Los Angeles car.
It's a Los Angeles car. So it was made in L.A. It was sold in San Diego, and it stayed in San Diego its whole life, like literally. So it was on a train that came down and was dropped off, or on a truck, and it only went 100 miles from where it was manufactured. So this car has light years paid itself off in transportation. As far as if I were to have to buy a brand new car, let's just say every 10 years, I would have to buy another one, and buy another one. This one's already paid itself off. So now the only reason why I'm trying to get mileage out of it is because when I got this, I set a goal that I know it's ridiculous, but it's something I get these standards in my head and I have to figure them out. I wanted this car to be better than the Hyundai Elantra that I was driving. The Hyundai Elantra I was driving was an 05 or an 06 Hyundai Elantra. It was a blue one, and I was driving it to Crower and back, and it would get about 29 miles to the gallon. So I wanted to get a Dodge Dart Slant 6 and get 30 miles to the gallon, and I was driving at 70 miles an hour, going to work. So that's the reason why I came up with that metric, and that was it's been over 8 years. I've been chasing that. I'm close, but I'm still chasing it.
Oh, right. So, we're starting to talk about something that I think is one of the coolest things in automotive history. Okay. The 455 Super Duty.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Pontiac. I mean, and this was the engine. This was the wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay. Because everybody had neutered their cars after 1971. They were neutered. You look at, they went from, well, one, it looks worse than it actually was because it went from gross horsepower to net horsepower at the same time as all this stuff occurred, right? But the Pontiac literally thumbed their nose at the federal government mandating the 87 octane fuel requirement.
Yeah.
Okay. They literally built some of the hardest hitting shit after 1972 because they came out with like 11.5 to 1 compression with Ram Air 5 heads and all kinds of crazy stuff. After all of that stuff began, what really hit them hard was really that's when the oil embargo stuff started happening.
Yeah. The oil embargo, basically with the lines of the fuel, that's what killed it.
Yep. And then once they got caught and smacked into place, man, it was like everybody was scrutinized at that point.
Hey, so somebody was asking me a question about Plan Z. So I was going to talk a little bit about Plan Z when we get to a part where there's not much going on.
Oh, go ahead, man. You can talk about it right now.
Okay. Yeah. So on Plan Z, I've been hinting at it. So I'll talk about it for a little bit. I have the turbo sitting right over here. So it's going to be a turbocharged Slant 6, and it's out of a Pontiac 301. Funny enough, I found a guy, and he's got a YouTube channel. So if we have a moderator here, if they could put this up, it's called TTA Performance. So TTA space Performance. This guy, believe it or not, TTA stands for Turbo TA. He has a whole website dedicated just to this turbo and that engine, the 301 Pontiac. And he's got a YouTube channel. So yeah, go put it up there and go and sub him. He's actually a cool dude. So he's actually going to be giving me a lot of the parts that I'm going to need to get Plan Z working. And not only that, because this year I'm going to run it in the stock configuration turbo. Next year, Dallas, check this out. He sells a cartridge. So a new cartridge, which is basically the center part with billet wheels on it. And it goes into the stock housing, and it's called the Stage 5 setup. So it's like it's got these like hot rod type of
I'm sure it's got like ceramic bearings and all that stuff in it.
Billet wheels and everything.
Yeah.
So that would be Plan Z 2.0 2.5 for next year. This year, I'm just going to get it running the way it is right now. And I'm actually making the camshaft right now. It's going to be 225, 240 on a 112 LSA. And I got the cylinder head right over here. And as soon as I'm done with some videos on that, I'm going to get some videos up on that. And I'm going to be building the engine here pretty soon. It was literally the cylinder head that was on this car that I took off. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a benchtop valve job on it, get it seating, and I'm going to change some of the springs. And I'm basically going to assemble this thing. I'll break the cam in. Well, hopefully I can get the DLC solid lifters before then. And then that way I don't have to break the cam and I can just start it up. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. That's why I've been holding off. I've been waiting for the DLC Mopar lifters to come in, solid ones, so I can put them in Plan Z and test them as I drive. So that's it in a nutshell of what I got going. But yeah, go check him out. It's TTA Performance. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a website. So yeah, go there and check him out. He's a cool dude.
B&R Racing says that Pontiac barely got Super Duty 455 through, got busted by the EPA cheating non-functional EGR valve. It was a dummy early 1973 Super Duty 455 cars. I'm just like how that the guys at Pontiac, John DeLorean, and I don't know if Monkey Knudsen was still there, but like I liked how they thumbed their nose at the government. Like, like, what are you doing? Tell us how to build cars. We don't tell you how to clean roads or feed people. Let's see. Levi's Backyard Performance says, which car is coming to No Name Nationals? We can both answer. All right. Well, Professor P, I'm sure, is bringing the Cookie Monster.
Well, that depends. If me and Joe don't get our race in, I think we'll finish up our race this year at the No Name Nationals, our 2 out of 3 heads-up race. It all depends on what I got going on, he's got going on, and to get our time right. Also, too, I think I might be getting an actual call-out from someone, like a real legit call-out. They texted me and asked if I was up for it, and I said, absolutely. So I said, send one across the bow. So if that happens, then yes, I'll be bringing that. But if not, No Name Nationals is a great proving ground for Plan Z. So it'll be one of the two. Because the next month I got to race that thing, a 1,000-mile drive, and he's going to be sitting in the car too. Him or my brother be sitting passenger as we drop parts and rust down the road. I think
between me and you and your brother and Bobby Frizzell, we're all going to be well represented there at the Six Smokies. So yeah. I don't know what I'm bringing yet. I mean, I didn't really say this much. My T-Bird is history, right? It's been sold. It's long gone. That was after last year's No Name Nationals. So,
did you ever announce that? I don't think you ever told that.
I don't know if I told anybody that at all. So this year, I mean, I have a couple of options what I could bring there. I'm looking at right now. I don't know yet, but I could possibly be showing up in a 1970 GS Stage 1, which I think would be cool because it was my dad's old race car that's been turned back into a street car back in the 80s, and it hasn't seen the light of day since pretty much 88, 89. But our tech guy, Deke, used to be my dad's racing partner, and they used to race this car together. I thought it would be kind of cool, to show up at No Name Nationals and make Deke tech the car, and he knows everything about it.
Oh, that'd be bitching, dude.
Yeah.
He's going to be our tech guy this year again, right? Because he was saying last year.
As far as I know, I haven't heard anything otherwise, but I don't know. Let's see. Vintage Adventure.
I'm going to announce this to everyone who goes to No Name Nationals. 1, bring some extra canopies. I brought every canopy I had, so that way we could keep Deke safe and out of the sun. 2, I brought a massive fan. It brings some extra waters, bring some extra, covers for him as far as tents, or maybe we can even use that little area that they have in the shop there. They have that little covered area. Maybe people can pull their cars into that this year. We want to keep Deke out of the sun, man.
He's definitely not getting any younger. No. And if you didn't know, I mean, Deke was my main tech guy at the AHRA. I've known Deke since I was 2. I don't know. I think he may have known me longer than that. I don't know. Maybe when I was in my dad's pants. I have no idea. But that's when I can remember Deke. It's when I was 2 years old. But Deke worked at a gas station with my father.
And that's the reason why me and Dallas park right there is to help Deke out the whole time. So that way we can, I mean, seriously, that's what we're there for, is to give him as much help as we can, dude, you know?
Yeah. Let's see.
Who do I talk about getting custom camshaft?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to ask that one. I saw that one.
Well, you can call us up. You can call me up, you know. Pulido at edelbrock.com.
Well, Vintage Adventure Drives, he's registered for No Name Nationals.
Oh, then just call up Alex So.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, can't he like shoot you or an email and then you can just make up a profile and shoot it to Alex So?
That's how we've done it before. There's actually been about 5 or 6 people in here. Yeah, so if you go to Alex So, I think it's at ASO at edelbrock.com. Tell him as long as you're registered, just tell him what you're looking for. Then he'll forward it over to me. Then I can get with you and you tell me your whole setup, and then we'll make you a cam according to your setup. And then you'll get a special price on it. You'll get the No Name Nationals price out of it. So yeah, that's no problem at all.
Yeah, and the neat thing about that is, I can't remember, what was that guy's name, the young engineer that was the camshaft guy when I went in there looking for the profiles. Oh, dang. Austin? Is that right? No.
Well, there's an Austin. There's Austin, and then there's Chris Potter.
Who was the guy that did the custom cam profiles when you guys were at Democrat? We went in there. I remember I went in there one day and I talked to him.
That was well, there's Solinsky. There's Austin Lager. I'm sorry. There's Austin. He
had a Slant truck, I think.
Oh, okay. Then that's him. That's Austin. Yep.
Okay.
He's the one. He's the engineer. He's the one that designs. He does all the. He programs all the cams. So like when the cams come in, he gets the cam core. He does all of it in SolidWorks. So he's the one that designs that puts the lobes on there.
That's what I thought. He was the custom cam guy.
Yeah, he's the one that programs the machines for the custom cam. So like a person like me will pick the profile. We send him the cam card. He's the one that programs the cams, what cam it is, the base circle, the lift. I mean, he's the one that sets up everything from that point on. So yes, that's what he does.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see what we can catch up on here.
Yeah, Danny Boy, that means Democrat Road. We not mean Democrat. It's Democrat Road in Tennessee. That's where CompCams is located. Correct.
Yeah, that's where the headquarters used to be.
Yeah. Oh, see, he's running Six Smokies also. Perfect. Well, that's where we're going to be.
Oh yeah, Mohawk 62. Yeah, I plan on doing Six Smokies run, but not in this camp. That's fine, man. We'll be out there, so you can come hang out with us.
Yeah, we're going to try to get most of the guys at Edelbrock. We're all going to share an Airbnb every night.
And Bobby Frizzell is going to be out there too, right? So
yeah. So I told him I'm going to have at least 4. So me, you, my brother, and Bobby. That's 4 of us plus the other guys. So we're going to get a decent house, but for each night, it's going to come out to nothing for everybody. But it's going to be like $20. So yeah, everyone's going to be covered.
Okay, so Danny Boyd says, oh no, I picked the wrong one. Tom Brown says, is it only those who sign up for the Triple Crown that get the discount, or those who sign up for No Name Nationals? No, it's everyone that signs up for No Name Nationals.
Yeah. Once you register, it goes to John Wilburn, and then John Wilburn messages Alex So, and they have a spreadsheet. And then from that point on, then you get all the information, and then you're in the No Name Nationals discount code. The more parts we buy, the better the discount gets. Right now, you're starting at Engine Builder, which is like second best. The best one is the next one. So we basically got $25,000 entry fee for free. And then once we get to 50 grand, then we get to the next one, which is warehouse WD, Warehouse Direct. That's the best you can get.
Let's see. Bobby's saying, wow, did I just get upgraded from a tent to a house?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. You got to every day. I'm telling you, it's gonna be hot, or at least in that some points, at least in my car, it's gonna be hot. Yes, you're gonna be way upgraded because you're gonna be able to take a shower and you're gonna feel like $1 million the next day.
Dude, I'm gonna throw the common sense out here. Okay, I'd be willing to bet that you and I and Bobby Frizzell and your brother we'll be running in a pack, taking care of each other, fixing each other's breakdowns, and I'm hoping to God we get to sleep every night.
Agreed.
But it may not be the case.
Agreed. I'm bringing a tent and things just in case. But yes.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah. In fact, since my car's going to be street legal, I'm going to drive it a lot to make sure that it can do what I say it's going to
You
do.
should drive it all the way to Six Smokies and then drive it home.
Negative. Because I'm going to make some hero runs. Remember, my goal. Look,
pull out all the stops. Last one there.
Last day. It doesn't matter, man. I got 5 engines right here lined up. So I send the look. I'm doing this all in factory stuff. So if I send the shit through the fucking floor, I don't care.
Well, you're gonna go put plates on it, right?
Oh yeah,
dude. Go get your own custom plate that says "Send it." Right? That's what I think. Yeah, like I'm just gonna abuse it. It may be a Slant 6, but it's like abuse is abuse. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, hey, believe it or not, that was our 2 hours.
Really?
Yes, that went by so fast. It was ridiculous. So, all right. I'd like to thank all of you that came in here to watch the live tonight. I know that we've been having some issues with StreamYard. I'm probably going to have it again next week because I still haven't bought the membership for StreamYard. So maybe that's what I'll have to buy. But I do thank you all for stopping by. I thank those who donated money so that we can get the StreamYard program going. Also, I'd like to thank the people that donated money last week for the Buick Century.
Yeah.
Well, and this week, of course. So it's like, hey, thank you so much.
Yeah, Buff Del Campo and Mopar Al. Mopar Al gave $19.99 and Buff Del Campo $3 for a super sticker. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Let's see. And then don't forget, Buff Del Campo is probably live after this. I don't doubt it. I mean, Jim go live like almost every day, and they review car pictures and have a lot of fun doing it. So,
and remember, next week on my channel, 7 to 9, and I'm not really sure what we'll be discussing, but we'll go into deep dive on something. I'll figure out something. But that's just because Dallas is going to be on the road, so it'll just be on Slant Daily Garage for next week.
Yep, perfect. And so we will. And last but not least, John Wilburn will be live Friday. So make sure you stop by John Wilburn channel and I don't know, give him a bunch of crap. Because that's what he does when he shows up on here. He stirs up a bunch of shit and then leaves. So over to his channel, stir up a bunch of crap and then bail on him and let all the fallout happen.
Yeah.
So,
and if you're looking to building a really easy turbo system, go look at a suck through turbo and go to TTA Performance. I'm telling you, man, the guy's awesome, dude. So he's got some cool stuff up there. Oh, Buff Del Campo said he's maybe going live at 10 Central. So you got an hour to go get something to eat.
A bit late for this old bastard, but I'm not going to be hanging out that long.
Not me either.
Yeah. All right. We will see you cats on the flip side. So we're out.
Take it easy.